Hi everybody, I am going to show you how to use a snow overlay from Tara Lasher Photography. She's got a bunch of free ones that are really fantastic. And this is the image that I'm going to use. This might be a little funny. I've got 3 kids at home with me right now, so forgive me for that. And also, I have never edited this image before. Usually when I screen record me editing, I've actually already edited the picture, and so I just go based on my memory, and I kind of don't have to do the trial and error thing. But I'm just going to kind of wing this. So this is the picture I'm going to choose. It may not be the greatest picture to choose for a snow overlay because you can see a little bit of blue in the skies, and obviously there's a little bit of sunset peeking through. And when it's snowing outside, it's usually very gray. You don't normally have sunlight when it's snowing, but I'm just gonna roll with it. So anyway, because I think this might be a fun one to do. It's not the greatest picture. I mean, you can kind of see it looks like she is missing a couple of limbs, which isn't awesome. But I kind of like her. Let me get into zoom in here. I kind of like her crazy little face. Actually, I've not zoomed in. This is 3:1. I don't need to go that far in. And maybe, hopefully, it's in focus. When it was all the way zoomed out, it looked like it was in focus, but maybe not. She's looking a little soft there. Oh, no. That's focus. That's focus for that lens. Okay, so I shot this, just to kind of back up. I shot this with my Nikon D5200, my Sigma Art 18 to 35 1.8. I shot it at ISO 100 at 22 millimeters, 1.8 at 1/800th of a second. Okay, this is straight out of camera. Haven't done a thing to it. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hit D to go to my develop module in Lightroom. And let's just see kind of what I would do here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get a white balance adjustment going. I'm going to pick my dropper over here because I do have a neutral gray. I know for a fact this shirt is gray. Her leggings are gray. You could almost even maybe get away with using like her hat. Her tutu is a little creamy kind of color. But anyway, since I know I have a neutral gray, I'm going to use that. And you can see just from the grid that's there, it's very blue looking, so it's probably going to warm this up more than I want. But I can always change it. Okay, so that's a little warmer than I want, a little bit more yellow than I want, and maybe more green than I want. So then what I do is just based on my eye, I'm going to take this down a little bit, and then I'm also going to increase the magenta a little bit, maybe not that much. Again, I'm just going based on my eye, what I think I want it to look like. And honestly, because I'm adding a snow overlay, I don't want this really yellow. So actually, I am going to bump it maybe a little more cool than I normally would, just to match with the snow. Snow and a snowy day, winter light is a lot more blue. It's a lot more cool. So anyway, so this is what I adjusted it to. This is as shot. I really don't want it super yellow. But I do want her skin tone to be a little bit warmer, and I don't want it to be too cool. Okay, so exposure I'm fine with. I can maybe bring down the highlights a little bit in the sky. That looks kind of cool. Again, I don't know about that blue. I might take that out in Photoshop. Let's see here. The shadows. You know what I might do? I might, since I've already taken my white balance, I've been having a lot of fun with the tribe presets. So let me just see if there's a tribe preset that I might want. I'm looking over here in the preview, and again, I don't want anything too yellow. Now the first one, LXC01, tends to be very magenta. Let's see if I can find a cooler one. That's kind of neat, the second one. Ooh, I like the third one. I think I like the third one because of the cool tone that it brings to the image. Yeah, let me just rock with that. I'm gonna click that. That's the beauty of a preset. It just clicks it and changes it. Oh, I love that. Okay, I love what that did to the image. Definitely what I'm going for. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look back up here again. look at these sliders, see if there's anything I want to change. I really don't want my blacks to be any deeper. Normally I would. I actually really like my blacks pretty deep, but because this is going to be a snow image, that wouldn't make sense. Let's see. Is there anything else? I might bump, well, the orange luminance is +5. Maybe bump that a little bit more. I'm just going to tap around. I definitely want my yellows a lot darker luminance-wise because you can see I don't really like a lot of the yellow in the grass, so I'm going to maybe deepen that up a little bit, and maybe the greens too. We'll see what that does, but I may lose my trees, so I don't want to do that. What happens if I lighten the greens, actually? Actually, I love what that's doing to the trees here if I lighten the green. So I'm just looking at the colors in the image. The red in her hat, that's fine. If anything, I'm going to lower the saturation of the red because it's a little bit too like bright, don't you think? So I'm just going to lower the saturation so it's just not so glaringly bright. Let's see what else. For sharpening, I always do the same thing when I sharpen an image. Come on, why aren't you? Usually I can move around in this little guy. I can grab this little box, put it on her. There you go. Okay, so what I do for my sharpening is I always hold down my Alt Option key. I take my masking slider and I go to 100. And then I look a little bit, and you can look in that preview box on the right-hand side. It is masking out all of her skin, but you can still see her eyes, her hair, her mouth, her nostrils, and so that's perfect. I'm going to leave it at 100, and that way I'm not adding any noise or sharpening to her skin or to the background, which I really don't want to do. And then for luminance, I always just kind of tap, and that's fine. It's an ISO 100, so I don't care too much about luminance. If my ISO was anything over like 400, I would take a really hard look at luminance and make sure that I did that correctly. But for ISO 100, I don't really care. Let's see. I don't think it's going to change too much. She does look a little bit tilted. So I'm going to go ahead and click these two boxes. Enabling profile corrections does take away some of the vignetting, which actually I like because I want to see some of the green in here, so I like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and click full for under my transform and see what happens. Nothing happened. So off, full. It does look a bit tilted though, doesn't it? I was hoping this would help me a little bit, but it's really not helping me a little bit. I can take this guy and I can draw a line. I've never drawn a vertical line before. So maybe let's see what happens if I do that. Usually I'll do this for a horizon. Whoa, and then I'll hit done, and then it straightens the horizon. I've never done it vertically, so let's see what happens. Nothing. Well, if all else fails, I can simply just crop it by using the shortcut R, which is annoying because in Photoshop it's C. So I think Lightroom and Photoshop should have consistent shortcuts. But see what happens? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this alone, and I'm going to use Content Aware Crop in Photoshop so that I maintain some space between her foot and the bottom of the frame. Her foot is a little bit too close to the bottom of the frame for me. So you know what? I'm not going to crop it. Okay. So where are we? We did all this stuff. I can add a little bit of a vignette in there. That's good. Okay, so cool. So here's where we were. This is straight out of camera, and this is where we are now. Again, it's a little warm maybe, but I'm going to play with that in Photoshop and see if I can get that to be a little bit cooler and look decent with a snow overlay. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to take this into Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just crop this the way that I want to right now. Normally, I would crop right before I exported it for print or for for Instagram or for the web. In this case, because I'm going to do a content aware, I'm just going to go ahead and do it first. So here's what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to hit C for crop tool. And then I am going to, actually, hold on, I gotta click the content aware button. I never have delete cropped pixels. I never have that, because if you do that, you're gonna lose those pixels. And if you want them later, you won't be able to get them later. So let me go ahead and kind of straighten her out a little bit. That makes more sense to me. Yeah, see how the trees are just straighter? And that looks better. And then what I'm going to do is pull this down. That looks good. I think that looks good, and I like that. Hopefully we'll add a little bit more at the bottom of the frame. The vertical lines seem to line up better with her leg and with the tree. I'm not sure why Lightroom wasn't helping me with that, but that's okay. I'm going to hit return and just see what happens. See if Photoshop does a decent job filling that area for me. Okay, so let's take a look here. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. This area looks a little funky, but that's okay, actually. The grass, they did a good job. I'm gonna hit Z and just zoom in to just make sure there's nothing that's really wacky. That looks good to me. That's fine. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and Command J to duplicate my layer, L for lasso. I'm just going to get rid of that bad boy. I'm going to hit Shift Delete. It's on content aware. I'm going to hit OK. All right, Command D to deselect. I've got my lasso again. I'm going to just get rid of some stuff. Let's see. I can get rid of that little area too. That's just kind of nitpicky, but whatever. Okay. Command 0 to kind of take a look at everything. Make sure there's nothing else that I would want to remove before I get started. You know what I want to remove? And this might be a little hairy. Z for zoom. I want to remove this next to it because I want her hat to stand out a little bit more, and I don't like how close that is. So I think what I'm going to do is S for clone stamp. Right now my clone stamp flow is at 3%. I'm going to go to Shift 3 to go to 30. Alt Option to take a sample. And then I'm just going to hopefully bracket key to get my brush a little bit smaller. And I'm always looking at that little plus sign hash mark to make sure I'm not close to her hat. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. I could also harden my brush a little bit if I felt like I wanted to do that. I'm going to take another sample from up here so I don't get too close to her hat. There. That way her hat stands out a little bit more. Let's see. Command 0 to go out. Yeah, I like that. I like that you're seeing that a little bit better. So this was before. I like that we just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Okay, cool. So I'm good with that. I think what I'm going to do now is just merge these down, or I use a shortcut to kind of flatten it. It's really not flattening it. It's just merging down, but Shift Command E to merge those down because I don't imagine that I'm going to do anything else with that. I'm going to go ahead and layer new background from layer. I need a background layer here to run an action. I'm going to use my favorite action, which is Opulent from Paint the Moon. I've had this action for many years, like 3 or 4 years. I don't remember how long, but I use it a lot. It's very dramatic, which I like, and you know, the preset that I used is really pretty, and I'm not going to use a lot of the layers in the Opulent one because it'll warm it up too much. You'll see it'll just be way too warm for what I'm going for with the snow overlay, but I do love a lot of the effects that it that it performs on your images. Okay, so that ran, and then let's take a look. All right, so this is before, after, before, after. Very nice, actually. I'm going to go ahead and I turn off all my layers. The way that I do that quickly, I'm on a MacBook, and so what I do is I kind of hold down. I think you can use the shift key too, I'm not sure. But I hold down on my trackpad with my thumb, and then I just scroll down to turn off all the layers. And so what that does is it basically turns off that action, and then I can add these layers in as I see fit. So I kind of like that because, and we are going to darken some of this, but I love all the detail and texture in the tree. So I'm going to brighten up the shadows, soften reds. I might look at that one later. That might be a good one to use because it does kind of cool it nicely for snow, but I'll take a look at that. Clarity I'll add, a little bit of a spotlight effect. I don't know if I want color, but I do in her skin. So I'm going to go ahead and Command I on the layer mask, Z to zoom. I'm going to hit B for my brush. I've got a small brush already. I've got my white brush selected, and I'm just going to go ahead and warm up her face a little bit. Maybe her hand. I wonder if I want to get rid of her her little bracelet there. I don't really care. Okay, so this is before. She's kind of grayish, cool looking. And then I gave her a little more warmth. Let me make sure that's not too much. Command 0 to zoom out. I don't think that's too much. I think that's fine. All right. I don't want more warmth, I don't think. I really don't want more warmth. Deep pop, that looks good. Intensity, yeah, we'll keep that. The depth, uh-oh, that's never good. See, I'm not a huge fan of that strong of that layer, so I often will bring this down. All right, now let's take a look and see if I like it. So that's before and after. Yeah, I'll keep it at, maybe I'll go down a little bit further. All right, lighten the blacks up a little bit. When I lighten blacks or I add a matte effect, I'm always going to brush it off of my subject. So I'm on my layer mask, it's a white mask, B for my brush, X to pull up a black brush. I'm at flow of 50%, which is good. And I'm just gonna take that off of her so that she doesn't get lost. I wanna make sure that she's nice and contrasty. And then I can hit the backslash button to find out where I've missed. It'll show me. Okay, I'm going to hit X to get this little part, the overage part over there. That looks fine. X again just to make sure I get that. Okay, I'm going to hit the backslash button again. And here is before, after. I'm actually going to increase this effect a little bit later too. Curve. Oh, I love that. I love that because it lightens it a little bit. Matte effect. I know I'm going to want that, but I'm going to hold down Alt or Option on this Lighten Blacks layer mask. I'm going to pull that up and drop it on the bit of matte. And again, that way I keep the contrast on her. I like that. I'm not going to use any more of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and close that group. You can see before, after. I love that. All right, so now let's go ahead. I'm going to add a levels adjustment layer. I'm going to go to output levels. I don't know. Maybe let's see what 15 does. This is going to really lighten the blacks. If you can see here on the histogram, instead of going all the way and hitting the left side of the histogram, which would be black, it moves it way in. So I'm going to turn this effect off and then on again, off and on. And you can see it just kind of lightens everything. And I think for a snow picture, I think that would work really well. Um, hmm. And I think I'm going to brush that off of her. So let me just make sure, at least her facial features. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. All right, let's just see what happens if I add some snow. I may have to, we'll see how I feel about the light and the, again, this is just kind of an experiment here. So just so we can see, this is what happened from Lightroom, and it looked pretty good in Lightroom, right? But then you go into Photoshop and you're like, oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Let's see, you know, before I do that, let me go ahead and do let me do a couple more things. Let me do a Q for quick mask. I've got 50%. I'm just going to kind of, just her face. I'm going to hit Q again. You can see her face is selected. I'm going to go to levels, and then I'm going to just maybe see what happens. Again, this is an experiment. I'm going to move these little sliders in so that they touch. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it off and on and see if I like it or not. So there she is before, after, before, after. It's a little strong. I'm going to Z to zoom in a little bit. And she is kind of making a funny face, but whatever. So off, on. I'm just going to lower the opacity of that a little bit. Okay, Command 0. What else do I want to do? I'm going to do Shift, Alt, Option, Command E to do a stamp visible pixel layer. This is a pixel layer that I can work on now. And if I decide I've screwed up anywhere below it, I can go ahead and I don't have to start clean over. Like I can, you know, I can toss out anything above it, but that just gives me a new pixel layer to work on. So this is distracting. I'm going to take my lasso tool. I could also use like spot healing brush or something like that, but I got rid of that. Let's see, and I did Command D to deselect. All right, let me go to my sponge tool. Sponge tool does a nice job of kind of brightening and saturating some stuff, so that's kind of cool. Let me go to my dodge tool, and I'm dodging the highlights, exposure 2%. We'll see what happens with that. I'm going to add a little bit more texture in to these cool leaves here. I think that's fine. That's kind of cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I want to do to mess with this, I feel like. All right, let's go ahead and just add the snow overlay. All right, so I'm going to go to File. I do Place Embedded. You could do Place Linked. You could just pull up Finder and move it over. These are now in my downloads. I do need to move them over to my, my external hard drive. Okay, so let me just take a look and see what might work well. And you can layer these too. You can use multiple ones. What do I think I want to use? I think the ones Tara had said in her tutorial that the ones with the bigger chunky snowflakes are better for more of an up close image, and this is not. So let me see. I don't want it too strong. So 5 looks good and 8 looks good. Maybe 5 and 8. 10 looks good too. 5 and 10 maybe. Okay. Let's go ahead and place 5. And if I want to layer them, I can put 10 on there too and just see kind of what happens. Done. I think I'm just going to call that done. So I'm going to hold down Alt Option, and I'm going to take my background layer. So that was out of Lightroom, and then this is my Photoshop edit. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do one other thing. Sorry. I'm going to add a transparent layer here. B for brush. I'm going to increase my brush size. D for default. X to have my white white on top. And then flow, shift 1 to get a flow of 10%. And then I'm going to go across the bottom and just sweep across the bottom, because that's kind of a neat effect. And then I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit. And yeah. Not that white vignettes are in, right? But I think you can kind of get away with that in this kind of an image. So I'm going to lower the opacity even more so it's not super noticeable. I'm going to turn that off and on. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Again, I'm just kind of playing around at this point. Yeah, we're just gonna call that a day. So, okay, so this was my straight out of Lightroom here, and then this was my crazy snow overlay edit. So, hope that was helpful. Thanks.